Hey, this is Dave.
Matt.
And Zap.
And welcome to the Vintage Cinema Review,
where every week we review some of our favorite films from the past.
Hey, there ain't no late fees here.
Silence is golden. And be kind. Rewind.
Getting in that holiday spirit.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm feeling it.
Something wonderful about it, I would say.
Indeed.
Right.
Just like life.
What are you loading up on the old projector there?
Oh, today it's going to be It's a Wonderful Life.
Oh, man, this is a classic.
This is truly a Christmas classic. Dare I say it's an any time of year classic.
Yes.
Life is wonderful, especially in this movie.
Yeah, this is one that I slept on for a long time. And talking to people, I think a lot of people did. We were talking about that.
Yeah, you are not alone. There's a number of people I've come across, and hell, I'm even one of them. I didn't come across this until, man, high school? Late high school? Hell, maybe even after high school?
Yeah, literally, I slept watching this.
Did you?
Yes.
That's a shame.
It's wonderful.
It's not shocking, though.
So, yeah, It's a Wonderful Life. It was rated PG, 1946, released with a runtime of 2 hours and 10 minutes. This is ranked as the #1 most inspirational movie of all time by the American Film Institute, and that's from 2006.
There's no doubt.
Yeah, and it was added to the U.S. Library of Congress National Film Registry in 1990 for being culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant. So I thought those were two important things to bring up in the beginning.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, that's baller status for any movies that we do.
Absolutely.
Once you reach that.
Yeah, for sure.
Big stuff.
It speaks volumes. It really does.
Yep. So release date on this, to be exact, was December 20th, 1946, which was a limited release, and then released nationwide January 7th, 1947. And I'm assuming other countries. Do you think back then? I don't know. I didn't really see.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I'd read somewhere that the release for this was actually rushed. It was supposed to come out in 47, but they really rushed it for twofold. One, they wanted to have it out in time for the Christmas season. Two, they wanted to be part of the 16th annual Academy Awards.
Oh, how about that? So this was based on a short story, I guess you would call that. It was called The Greatest Gift by Philip Van Doren Stem. And this was directed by Frank Capra, produced by Frank Capra. Now, budget on this, insane. $3.18 million.
That's in 1946.
Yes.
God damn.
Now, box office was $3.3 million. So it did make its money back. But how much were tickets in 1946?
Yeah, like on a nickel.
Yeah. Maybe even a little more for like a newly run movie.
So that's a lot of ticket sales. And you're not talking about rentals after that. So, you know what I mean? Like, to make your money back. And I would imagine, like, when this would be released on television then, like, I'm sure they would make money off that, correct?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. This was filmed in several locations in California, so mostly it was a pretty elaborate set on the RKO Encino Ranch and then Culver City.
What's RKO? Is that like a record company also, or was that the studio?
I mean, if you watch some really old shit, like if you watch old Three Stooges stuff, anything of that nature, you're going to see RKO. Like RKO was the Warner Brothers of the time, the Universal of the time, the United Artists of the time. I mean, they were pretty big.
So probably like the conglomerate. Then all these like other things were under that umbrella.
Yeah, they had a big
I've heard of it. Yeah.
Radio, telly, movies,
and then also at the Beverly Hills High School, the dance scene.
Yeah,
that was filmed with the pool.
Yep.
Also, the exterior of Martini's house was in La Canada, Flint Ridge. I don't know if that's like a town or what in California. I would assume this is all California. So
sure.
That's pretty much all I have for that fun stuff. So I'll turn it over to Zap for the cast.
Thanks, man. The cast of It's a Wonderful Life includes, but is certainly not limited to, because I had to cut a lot of people out of this.
Oh, I'd imagine
there's twice as many people as I have listed, and I got a shit ton of people listed.
All those people in the room at the end.
I mean, dude, yeah. We got James Stewart as George Bailey. Jimmy Stewart, that is.
Mm-hmm.
Donna Reed as Mary Hatch. Lionel Barrymore as Mr. Potter. Thomas Mitchell as Uncle Billy. Henry Travers as Clarence. Frank Phelan as Ernie. Ward Bond as Bert. Gloria Graham as Violet Bick. H.B. Warner as Mr. Gower. Frank Albertson as Sam Wainwright. Todd Carnes as Harry Bailey. Samuel S. Hines as George's father, Mr. Bailey, Beulah Bondi as George's mother, Mrs. Bailey, Bobby Anderson as a young George Bailey, Jean Gale as a young Mary, Janine Ann Roos as a young Violet, Bill Edmonds as Mr. Martini, Argentina Brunetti as Mrs. Martini, Sheldon Leonard as Nick the bartender, and as the Bailey children, we had Carol Coombs as Janie, Larry Sims as Pete, Jimmy Hawkins as Tommy, last but not least, Carolyn Grimes as Zuzu.
Do we know if anybody's alive from this movie?
Possibly one of the kids, possibly one of the Bailey kids.
Yeah, I was just curious.
I'm sure, but you say like 1946, 47. I mean, that was only like 30 years before we were born.
True.
It's not like very long.
Dude,
Yeah.
Like if you look back on it,
isn't that some shit?
yeah, like think about it. That's only 30 years. So I'm pretty sure a lot of these people are still, maybe still kicking, the kids at least, you know?
Yeah.
So scarier yet would be that would be like a movie now, us watching something from like 96. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, from then to now.
I mean, for sure.
Yeah, with music and stuff too. When you show your kid, you're like, this is stuff that was like 30 years ago. So it's kind of like when we heard our parents' music growing up, you know, we're like, dang, that sucks.
It's the same shit, man.
Yeah,
and it just goes. It's generation after generation after generation. You're going to see it. It's amazing, though. I'm really fond of that.
One thing I do enjoy about when we do these older movies is like the names, because you don't hear like Ward. It's not like a very popular
first name.
Yeah, or like Beulah, Clarence. Like
Right.
you don't hear these names that much anymore.
I just had a conversation like this the other day. I was thinking like the name Maud.
Yeah, Maud. You don't see many Mauds.
You definitely don't see any Mauds. You don't see any Murrays.
Lionel.
Lionel. Well,
Yeah.
Richie.
Yeah, Lionel Richie.
But yeah, not many Lionels.
Stillborn long ago.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So Matt, you got a synopsis.
Yes, a very brief synopsis of the movie It's a Wonderful Life. George Bailey has so many problems, he is thinking about ending it all, and it's Christmas. As the angels discuss George, we see his life in flashbacks. As George is about to jump from a bridge, he ends up rescuing his guardian angel, Clarence, who then shows George what his town would have looked like if he hadn't been for all of his good deeds over the years. So he was a pretty good guy.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, when you look back on it.
Yeah.
So that was a good synopsis.
That was a fantastic synopsis.
Yeah, it was brief and fun, to the point.
To the point, yeah. So Zap, we're going to steer through the movie here then?
We are. Now look, there's detail in this, but that detail is important.
Yeah, so let's hop in our Model T and then be on our way.
Absolutely. All right. Well, our story begins in the small town of Bedford Falls, where we hear a number of voices praying for George Bailey, who's apparently fallen on hard times. Of course, answering the calls of the faithful, a guardian angel, Clarence Oddbody, is assigned to George. Now, Clarence, look, man, he's just an angel, right? He's just looking to earn his wings. He knows nothing about George Bailey. Senior angel Franklin takes Clarence and us on a flashback through George's life. So this was an interesting little scene in the beginning. You just see a little starscape, right? Like you're just looking out at the universe, and these couple of stars are blinking at one another, talking to each other.
Yeah, I think that was what supposed to be God.
So God was not there. You had senior angel Franklin, you had Joseph, the other angel, and then you had Clarence, who's just looking to earn his wings.
So they're just all angels up there.
They're all angels.
Oh, earn his wings. I remember that part.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was definitely cool, though, how they started that out. And that's probably a scene most people don't see. Because, like I said, a lot of people, for me, I'd catch this movie, if I did see parts of it, it would be in the middle. I'd always remember the scenes near the end.
Yep.
So I think this is something that if you never sat down and watched it, you probably miss.
Yep.
Because they have a lot of the Christmas movies now. They like this doesn't have a 24 hours, but you always see it during Christmas.
Oh, absolutely.
Because most like now, Elf I think got a 24-hour thing. A Christmas Story has been its thing, but I don't know. They need to bring some of the older ones back. I believe at least give it like 8 hours.
I'm with Matt on that one. I'm with Matt 100%. So through those flashbacks, as we're talking about, we're introduced to George when he was just 12 years old, and the year is 1919. He, his brother Harry, and a group of neighborhood kids are all just taking turns sledding down a small embankment onto a frozen pond. This is our first glimpse at the quality of George's character, where he saves his brother from drowning after breaking through the ice. Now, this incident causes George to catch a nasty cold that ultimately causes him to lose his hearing in one ear.
Yeah, that was all his fault.
Yeah.
You guys ever go sledding on shovels?
No. I would always like trash can lids and stuff.
You guys didn't have like real sleds. They were just plastic back then. They weren't very expensive.
Yeah, we had those like Yeah, we had those kind too.
You get them at
The
Kmart.
plastic. But no, I never did it on a shovel. Like I said, trash can lid. I did do that.
Right.
But you did?
Did you? Oh, yeah.
Oh, I didn't. No.
We would try anything. Absolutely. There was a kid that lived up the street from me, and he had a significant embankment in the back of his house.
Mhm.
And dude, we would pull out anything to try anything. Hell, we were doing it in the summer,
Yeah,
just rolling down dirt.
and doing wild stuff.
Hell yeah.
It seems back when we had like ice and ponds here. I remember Zap, your cousin Dave.
Yeah.
Yeah, right
You
by his
remember-
house. There was the pond that he had down there, and we used to go down there and play whenever it would get frozen. We mostly fall in most of the time.
The reservoir?
Yeah, the pond right down from his house.
That's the reservoir.
The reservoir.
Yeah.
We had
That was a fun place to play.
Shit, yeah.
we had a spot in the hood called Devil's Den,
Mm.
and that's where we would go sledding and stuff. It was like it wasn't. No, I went back as an adult, and it wasn't very intimidating. But
Was there,
back then-
was there a lot of gangsters that would hang out there?
yeah,
Like,
there
is
was
that
like, on your way down, you know,
It was hard. It was hard to go sledding there.
sledding over crack.
Yeah,
But
They used
needles.
They used Coke as the snow.
yeah, but it was all cocaine. Yeah, we would just
Yes,
go down
yeah.
in the
Sounds
summertime.
like a good time.
But no, I never did that, Zap.
All right. Well,
Yeah, no shovel here either. I don't think I've known anybody but you.
that's fine.
That's cool though.
You two didn't grow up broke enough.
I don't know.
Your dad's like, get out there sledding, boy.
Yeah.
I don't
Take
have a
the
sled,
shovel.
Dad. Use the shovel,
Use the
God damn it.
shovel. Right.
All right. A few weeks later, George is back to health. Fun fact, when he's not in school, George works at the local pharmacist shop and dreams one day being an explorer. I always have a great fondness when he walks in the door and he pulls that cigar lighter, that mounted lighter that's on the one countertop, and he crosses his fingers and it makes this wish, and he's I wish I had $1 million. Pulls it and it lights up. Hot dog. This is
But
just
yeah, one of the things they say back there, that was a cool part.
hell yeah, man. This is such a nostalgic movie. Like there's such purity and innocence to this.
See, this is the stuff that I like when I see in this movie when he was in the has a job at, what was he, like 11 or
12.
something?
Yeah.
12, yeah.
12 years old, the kid's got a job.
Yeah,
I
and
say
the
good
guys,
for him.
Yeah, the guys like he's hardworking. He's like putting the riz on a couple girls that are in there chilling.
They were digging him.
Yeah, but he's like working hard. But it seems like a fun place to hang out. We really didn't have places like that growing up.
That's right.
There was that one at the mall, at the East Mall. Remember, it was like 2 floors, and they had like a little diner, like restaurant.
Murphy's.
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 Yeah, I feel like that had like that
The
kind
feel
of
to
vibe,
it?
but like
Yeah.
an 80s version. You know, what I'm
100%.
saying? Yeah.
100%. Matt had mentioned, so at this point, we're now introduced to 2 young girls. One is Violet, who this girl, she's a little
Mm-hmm.
She's a little floosy.
She's a player.
Yeah, she'll talk to anybody, any young boy who will give her any attention. And of course, in this case, she uses the excuse of just coming in to buy 2 cents worth of shoelace licorice as her reason for being there. And then the other, Mary, who's there specifically to share time with George. Now, while we're there, something seems awry with the shop's owner, Mr. Gower. His voice is slurred. He's in a real foul mood. Well, meanwhile, George finds a telegram on the cash register Mr. Gower had received, and that is, in fact, news that his son had died of influenza, which I'm guessing certainly explains, the guy hit the bottle.
Mm-hmm.
He's down a little bit.
And this, so this is like 1919, right?
This is 1919.
So, I was wondering if that was
105 years ago.
that's crazy.
Mm.
So that was the year of like the Spanish flu, right? So I'm wondering if that was that pandemic.
Maybe that was the OG COVID-19.
I think it was.
Yeah.
Racist.
Yeah, right.
In Spain, they
Jeez.
in Spain, they just call it the flu,
man. Come
like,
on.
like
Spanish.
peanuts.
Jeez.
The Spanish
a flu's a flu, all right?
Spanish flu is different than Spanish fly.
That's true.
Foreshadow.
Also
Yeah, like
That's
that.
right. That's right. So, George is working. He's got a job. Part of his job, he's got to deliver drugs because, again, this guy's a pharmacist. So George is tasked with delivering this bottle of pills to a customer for a kid. But when he goes back, he sees that old drunk Mr. Gower, while in the midst of sipping on the old Ripple, mistakenly filled these capsules with poison instead of the prescribed medicine.
So back then, these pharmacists would
They
actually
made pills.
That's wild.
Yeah. There was no such thing as like hard pills, liquid gels, any of that shit.
Yeah, there wasn't big pharma. It was just some guy that has a license.
There was
Buying
no,
bottles of powder
Yeah.
and taking powder and putting that into capsules.
no Astra Merc.
Correct.
Gotcha.
You're just weighing stuff and hoping for the best.
Yeah. Hoping for the best. That's absolutely true. This was like one step above blackstrap molasses.
Yeah.
So instead of delivering the pills, George runs to get help from his father, who happens to own and operate Bailey Building and Loan with his brother, George's forgetful Uncle Billy. Unfortunately, his father's in the middle of a heated argument with one Mr. Potter, the local robber baron who owns much of the town and wishes to dissolve Bailey Building and Trust. George returns to Mr. Gower's shop and gets a beating for not delivering those pills.
That's slapping him on the head, on the ear.
Yeah,
that was like brutal.
Head, yeah.
And
Dude, yeah, please don't hit my sore ear, Mr. Gower. Please don't hit my sore ear.
And I read that was legit. Like, he really was hitting the kid, and he was really bleeding.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, for the filming of it.
Yeah, that's messed up, man.
It is.
This,
that was the 40s, though.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
speaking of the 40s for filming.
Yeah, for filming.
For sure. But we've talked about this, or we touched on this a couple of times when we were kids. Like, I got slapped around by other friends of mine's parents. Like, that was for sure. Yeah. Like, if you screw up when you're over at your friend's house, like, it was free reign. Like,
you would get hit. Yeah.
Hell yeah.
You get a pass.
You would absolutely get reprimanded.
Battling.
Yep. And one other thing, like, I was thinking about when Mr. Potter is rolling up in the carriage, like, everybody else is in cars, but he's rolling up in a carriage. But for some reason, that to me seems like he's like, it just shows that he's wealthy. I don't know why.
That's like an elitist thing.
Like,
that's because they were saying, like, oh, it's like a king.
Yeah, like rolling up, you know what I mean, on a horse and carriage.
Yep.
Like, if you did that even today, you'd be like, yo, this
100%.
I would do that today. If I had the money, I would roll around in horse and carriage.
Yeah, horse and carriage.
Oh, man.
I'll give it a mix of two. Like, I would do 100%. Yeah. Like, that's an elite baller thing to be rolling around in a horse-drawn carriage.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it also goes to show or to illustrate how old this guy is.
Old school.
Like, he's the Mr. Burns of Bedford Falls.
And that he's in no rush. Like, time's not I got money. I don't got to rush.
It's true.
Everything revolves around me. But that scene got me. I'm like, oh, look at this guy. Like, there's cars. You could drive a car. You could roll in a limo. I don't know if they had limos back then, but he's in a horse and carriage.
Zap hit the point. It's just he was so old school. That was wealth when he was growing up.
Yeah.
He's like, look at these newfangled things with motors and engines. I don't need that.
So he's stuck in his era.
Yeah.
I got you.
His best times.
There's a couple of things that we've already seen. Even, we're only not minutes, but we're a little bit into this film. We're starting to really get the character of George, right? So, I mean, with his brother, we're immediately seeing, like, his selflessness. Like, he didn't blink or think twice. As soon as his brother fell in that pond, he jumped right in to save him.
Hero.
If he told his brother to go, I don't know. It was
same thing. Same thing with this kid. And by the kid, I mean the would have been victim of Mr. Gower's poison pills. Like, George inadvertently saved that kid's life.
Right.
Again, like, this is just what George does. He just is selfless. He puts the needs of others above his own.
But what if he ruined that too? What if it was a new kind of, like, penicillin that wasn't, like, how did he know it was, like, truly poison? Maybe it was like poisoning, but in a good way.
Some kind of concoction that would have worked.
Maybe it was French, like poison.
Yeah.
Poison.
Yeah, who knows?
or Italian, like paisan, but it was just misspelled.
This guy seems a little off to me so far.
Wait, Mr. Gower or George Bailey?
George Bailey.
Maybe. Well, let's fast forward to 9 years later. Now, again, we're all living through at this point the flashback with Clarence, the angel. Mm-hmm. So 9 years later, George has since graduated from high school 3 years earlier. He earned some money while working at Bailey Building and Loan. And at this point, he's planning a tour of the world before heading off to college. In fact, goes to buy a sizable suitcase, and he finds that Mr. Gower, the same dude whose basically life and reputation he had saved, bought a suitcase for him. It's sitting there waiting for him. Mm-hmm. What a nice gesture. Well, George is, of course, a man about town. Dude knows everybody, and everybody knows him. We are now introduced to Ernie the taxi driver, Bert the cop, and Violet's all grown up, too.
Was that Bert and Ernie a reference to, were they out yet?
Bert and Ernie?
Yeah.
No.
Or do you think Bert and Ernie, the characters on, like, what was that?
We're based on this.
We're based on those guys.
I don't want to say that they were based on them, but it's certainly way too much of a coincidence to have two guys named Bert and Ernie.
Right.
Characters created by Jim Henson in the 60s or 70s.
So Jim Henson saw this movie and we're like, hey, yeah,
I gotta believe that's true. I've read somewhere that they deny that, but they denied it after Henson had died.
Well,
yeah, so how do you know? For sure?
Yeah, look, I gotta believe that the name's Bert and Ernie. That's just the way it worked out.
Right.
Because these two were, decent buddies here in the film.
Right.
Like the taxi
they were
drivers,
good characters.
Yeah, they're just hanging out talking
people.
to one another all day.
If one had a long head and the other one had like a flat round head, then you would definitely know.
You would know.
Yeah.
You don't even know.
You don't know.
Well, that night at the Bailey family dinner, we learned that Harry, George's younger brother, is soon to graduate from high school. I mean, look, this is something you want to talk about ballers, something you don't see every day. Annie, their housekeeper, their maid.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty baller for a guy that's just, for George's father, that's just,
running a
low ball savings and loan place.
Right.
Well, back then too, I think in other countries it's like that too. You just have jobs at what you like. You're not really necessarily like a millionaire type to have like somebody that works a job as a maid.
Like
I
a
think
housekeeper,
I think a housekeeper was like just a job then. It's like,
That's fair.
like they pay them, but that's part of like what they budget for. They're like, oh, I need somebody to take care of the house. So it's like a job.
Well, I know people like that are on my level, I'd say, income-wise, that have cleaners, house cleaners and stuff to come. Like, for me, I wouldn't think to spend that money on that, but I could see, or people that, like, I like to cook, but I know there's people like that'll do that, what's that one called, where they deliver the meals to you.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? For me, like, I'm not going to do that, but I guess in some ways people do that now. It's just different.
Well, it's funny. Like I work with a guy who does that for him and his wife do it or whatever. And I was like,
They do what?
Get those things in the
Blue Apron or
in
whatever.
the mail, whatever it's called.
Oh yeah, okay.
And he's like, oh no, you add like a couple ingredients. It's like they're like, oh, it helps me cook because you add a couple. I was like, that's not cooking, but you got to put it in like the special oven that you order and everything. But again, and he was saying, but by the time you go to the grocery store, you go in there, sometimes you end up spending way too much than you want. He's like, it kind of balances out if you only do it like for 3 of the days of the week or something.
You use what you buy.
So I can dig that. So when you go out and buy something, a great example is any kind of recipe that involves celery. So celery. Now, granted, celery is only like what, $1.50, $2 for a head of celery, but you only need like 1 or 2 stalks.
Yeah.
And what are you going to do with the rest of that celery?
Yeah.
So you end up throwing it away like you would do anything else. You only need a very small portion of a very large, let's say, vegetable that you have to buy the whole goddamn thing.
Right. It can be wasteful. I got you.
So I can see the things
they're saying it kind of makes sense when you talk the cost instead of, like you said, even if you want to do something like a nice dinner, you run out to the store to get whatever you want, then you're in the store, then you need this, you need this, you need this. And,
right.
and it turns into, it can kind of equal each other out, depending on how you look at it.
One other thing too, like I noticed in that one scene, was the brother like goosing her, the maid, like running into the kitchen? He was like chasing her.
Oh yeah.
He was like, hey, get back, you know what I mean?
Yeah, just having fun with the maid.
Oh, so he wasn't trying to get with it.
What? No.
Oh, okay.
Jesus.
Did you see that part?
I'm sure it's a family movie.
But I'm sure that would be a charge today for something.
Right.
I mean, yeah.
No,
but back then it was called fun times.
Yeah.
Just having fun.
It was innocent, clean fun.
Yes, it was innocent.
He was just goofing off.
Yep.
Goofing with a goose.
Just as she was goofing with the family.
Yeah.
I mean, she's sitting there listening in. She's engaging back. She's bantering back and forth.
Dropping eaves.
Yeah. That's right. She is dropping eaves.
That was funny. And she had her ear up to the door, and he's like, just come in and sit down. Like, you know what I mean?
That's right. Why don't you come? Come grab a seat. That way you can hear the whole conversation. Well, George has big plans for his life. As we'd mentioned, this dude's going to travel, then college, then he's going to go on to be an architect and a builder, right? He's going to build big buildings and long bridges and all this great stuff. George's dad asks him if he will instead come back to Bailey Building alone after college. Of course, George politely declines. He wants to get the hell out of the small town. He wants to move on to bigger and better things, like, not for nothing, like his friends have done.
Right.
Well, that night is Harry's high school graduation at the local high school. Of course, George politely tags along. While there, he runs into old classmates like we were talking about. He hears all their plans, and he also runs into a now 18-year-old Mary. Now, it's interesting. In their back and forth, he mentions like, man, I haven't seen you in years. All the while, she's been in town. She's seen him every day. He just never noticed it.
Isn't that? I thought he did when she walked by and all the dudes were checking her out.
That was Violet.
Oh, that was Violet. Okay,
that wasn't Mary.
Yeah. Okay.
That was Violet, the little floozy.
Yeah, Violet was the class where all the guys were like, "Hey, remember Violet?"
Yeah. I got you. Okay.
Yeah,
but he didn't want none of like, I'm not doing any. Yeah, but he didn't want none of that.
That's trying to hold back.
He didn't notice.
We got to have it once, at least once.
No, we'll see.
No. So you want to do a Bill Cosby?
No.
Okay. So
they're gonna come out for like the special.
Yeah,
ODB where we're going to do a whole thing on voices.
On impressions.
All of us have.
I'll do Pharrell.
Okay.
It's going to be one whole impression episode of Old Dirty Basement.
I'll do OJ.
All right.
Yeah,
yes,
that's awesome. Don't stab me though.
That's right.
All you got to say is, wasn't me. They're like, oh, that was a good one.
Yeah.
So George and Mary are now joining the throng of people that are dancing the Charleston.
Oh, I thought you said Mary had on some throngs. I was like, dang.
Let me see that throng.
So just to clarify, at this point, George Bailey is 3 years out of high school.
George Bailey is 3 years out of high school.
Okay.
So
So
young
he's
man,
supposed to be 21 there because I was watching that. Now, I know in these 80s movies, we always make fun of like 28-year-olds playing high school kids
Right.
and stuff. So that makes more sense.
Yep.
And and the people we were talking to were there more as like alumni.
Yeah, correct.
Hanging out. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, this isn't like a creeper thing, nothing like that.
I feel better because I thought they were portraying him as an 18-year-old, as a senior. Like
Right
I kind of missed that part.
right on.
I wonder how old he was in this.
38.
movie. Okay.
So
Yeah.
they did state, in fact, quite clearly that it was Harry's graduation, and he had graduated, 3 years earlier.
Right. I think I just missed that
Yep.
explanation or whatever. Because I mean, yeah, I know. I get you now.
It's cool. Not for nothing, man. I was going through the timeline just last night when I rewatched this for like the third day in a row, and I was piecing together. Okay, if this is this is okay. Just mapping it all out.
Right.
What a great dance! Why don't they do the Charleston anymore?
Yeah, my grandmother, I remember she always talked about that. Like, to them, that was the thing back then.
Heck
you know what I'm
yeah.
saying?
That
So
was like doing the Cabbage Patch. Kid and play.
Exactly.
It was like guys that could dance would get like all the ladies
Right.
because they could do like the Charles or whatever those dances were.
Right.
Like the women like to go out, and if they knew the dance, it'd be cool if they knew a guy that knew it. So yeah, they would get all the ladies.
So preoccupied with one another, George and Mary don't notice that a jealous Freddie Othello has activated a recently installed mechanism in the floor that opens it up to the swimming pool below. Of course they fall in, but the joke is actually on Freddie. He'd wanted to ruin the good time, but in the meantime, dozens of other attendees decide to jump in and have fun.
Yeah, that was
All
dangerous, man, when they were jumping on each other. Like,
Yeah.
I was looking at that like...
There was no lifeguard.
No, well, too, like...
Well, no, because people could be getting knocked out. Like you
Yeah.
said, like everybody was just going for it. And I think people probably got hurt.
Right. Michelle and I were watching, and she mentioned that, too. She's like, that's dangerous looking. I'm like, yeah, we had a pool below our gym, but I don't think our floor would open up.
No.
No, they closed it up.
Wait.
Yeah.
If our gymnasium floor opened up, there would have been probably a 50-foot drop to then fall into the pool.
Right, that's what I'm saying, yeah.
That,
We
in
did
fact,
have a pool.
50 might be the right number.
At the old McDevitt, there was a pool below, and the legend is that somebody drowned down there. That's why they closed it.
I believe that is an urban legend.
Urban legend.
I heard
okay.
that was true. Or maybe that's why it's an urban legend.
We should ask
I don't
Mr.
know.
Morrison.
I think there was more of a
I
chance.
saw Mr. Morrison the other day.
Did you?
Yeah, he was at
the
Sam's
wharf.
Club.
Oh.
Sam's Club.
Okay. But I think you're more likely to die on a piece of gym equipment back
Sure.
then down there because that was dangerous.
Oh, my
but-
God, yeah. Well, after everybody's now out of the pool, later that night, George escorts Mary home. Just this is a reminder, both of their clothes are still soaked. George is now wearing an old football uniform, and Mary's wearing a robe. Reconnecting with one another and harmonizing together to the song Buffalo Gals, they come upon an old and rundown Grantville house. The local tradition is to make a wish and throw a rock at the window, and if the window breaks, your wish will come true. Of course, George announces his wish to, again, see the world, build this, that, and the other thing, leave Bedford Falls, leave it all behind. Mary keeps her wish to herself. Carrying on with their reconnecting, George is smitten, and Mary finds herself in a compromising situation. And in the midst of their whimsy, George is alerted that his father's had a stroke, and he's whisked away.
Yeah, and that old guy was there like, hey, dummy, kiss her already. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Basically along those lines.
Speaking of, we were talking about dropping eaves. That neighbor, across the street neighbor and next door neighbor is just sitting there listening to these guys go, and then George gets into it with him.
Yeah.
In fact, this is how Mary loses her robe. She gets afraid that guys are going to come down and start throwing. So George is standing on the belt of the robe or the end of the robe, and she runs away.
Mm-hmm.
And lo and behold, robe falls off.
Yeah.
She jumps into the bush.
Yep.
In the bush.
That reminds me of like the Baby It's Cold Outside song. I kept on thinking in my head, like,
Did they try to cancel that?
Yeah. But
So
I'm just
dumb.
saying that was like kind of like, he was like, hey, you got this robe on, taking you for a walk.
Yeah. I can see that.
He was really pitching some risque stuff when she was in the bush. Now, granted, there was nothing dirty or filthy about it, but he's like, oh man, I could charge people to come here. I could do this, that, and the other thing. I had the advantage.
For 1946, like audience was probably, ooh, that's racy stuff.
It was definitely racy at the time.
Mm-hmm. Did you ever hear the thing about like back in the day in movies when a couple would be kissing and the girl's leg would go up?
Yeah,
that's supposed to signify an erection.
I don't know. I was going to say some level of arousal, but I can see that.
Yeah,
that's what I heard. I mean, heard or read. I forget where I even came up with that. I didn't make it up, honestly. But I didn't see that in this movie, but it just had me thinking about these old movies like that. That was always a thing.
Sure.
Like, come here, Shane.
Oh my gosh, yeah. So dude had a stroke. George's father had a stroke, and now we're 3 months later, where the board of Bailey Building and Trust is meeting to discuss the future of Bailey Building and Trust. Mr. Potter, a member of the board, absolutely hates Bailey Building and Loan. He wants to dissolve it.
Mm-hmm.
So George, of course, gives Potter the what for. Calls him out for being a slumlord and a loan shark and you name it. Of course, impressed by George's dedication, the remainder of the board offers to keep the building and loan open, but only if George will step in as the secretary. Of course, here we go. Good old selfless George recognizes the greater good and the fruits of his father's work. He forgoes his tour of the world. He gives his college money to his little brother, Harry, and he takes over the building and loan. I mean, that's a kick in the nuts.
Yeah, for sure.
This guy's just been waiting and waiting and waiting. It's like, all right, I worked hard for 3 years. Now I'm going to go. Shit, my dad died. I guess I got to carry on the family business, or otherwise this mean old Mr. Potter is going to take over the rest of the town.
Mm.
Did you think like maybe Potter was looking at George like, look at his woke ass, like back then woke, you know what I'm saying? Like he's down in the
this
industry.
whippersnapper.
Yeah, like that version of back then. Like
sure, I mean we all have it. Every generation has it.
You know, just looking at like the like how maybe we look at millennials and we'll joke around about like, you know, because we're stuck in our ways.
Yeah,
in many ways that, you know, I guess every generation.
Mr.
Like
Potter's complaining that people are riding around town in vehicles without horses.
Right.
The man's old school. What do you want me to tell you?
Horseless vehicles.
Horseless vehicles, right?
That's witchcraft, I tell you. Witchcraft.
Yeah, but again, this is George's decision. Like he took this upon him. So he could have been traveling the world. He could have been on a boat.
Yeah.
Could have been the next Titanic.
It is
Then he's
assuredly
like, yeah.
It is assuredly George's decision, but it is decision based on the weight of the consequences otherwise. Like if George leaves, the place closes. And if the place closes, Mr. Potter will take over the town and will make everybody basically beholden to him.
And there'll be some cool fun facts, Ab. I'm assuming maybe you have some too about how people viewed this movie back then, dealing with banking and all that.
It has been since this and anything before and anything since. I've talked about this on other podcasts. Big bankers, wealthy people, you name it, they are crucified. They are made to look like evil incarnate, absolutely evil incarnate.
Right.
Yeah, because they're bringing the man down, I guess. Anyway, moving along. We're now in 1933. It's 4 years after his father's death, and George, of course, has remained a staple in the community, still grinding away at that building and loan. Harry's now fresh out of college, and he arrives home married, to everybody's surprise. Harry's been offered a job by his father-in-law, but he offers to take George's place at the building and loan so George can finally go to college. Well, a party that night, for Harry's and his wife's honor, prompts George's selflessness to kick in once again. You know, he's got this is his older brother, and he's looking down. He's like, "Oh man, this little brother of mine. He's got his whole life ahead of him. I just can't bring myself to stand in the way of that. I mean, he's married, got this great job offer." So, stewing over where his life is gone, George's mom encourages him to visit Mary, who's also since returned from college. Mary still burns a candle for George. He's been her first and only love her entire life. While away, she'd actually drawn a sketch of old George lassoing the moon for her.
I thought you meant like she went to church, like put a quarter in.
Yeah.
Got like one of them little wick things. Anybody who's Catholic might get that joke.
I just now got it.
Drops $1 in.
Yeah.
It's like the 25 red candles. You get the little...
Oh, that's right. At the back of church.
Yeah, it's the back of church.
Yeah,
like, come
okay.
on, you guys. Come on.
I'm slow.
Oh.
I'm slow with it.
That's what I thought, like still burn a candle. I was like, oh, that's kind.
We never... I
was like, I didn't see that in the movie. But
I never had that at any church I came up in. I saw that in some of the more Orthodox Catholic churches.
Yeah, no, the old school ones.
Yeah,
pretty
like
much
the
have it
Byzantine
everywhere.
ones. Basically, anyone that wasn't following Vatican Council II. And that...
I think
Tragedy.
Prince of Peace has it, I think, at the back.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, St. Catherine's has one.
Maybe I just don't remember it.
I mean, I don't know if they had it back then, but I think in the last, 10, 15 years.
Matt, you're right. St. Catherine's did have that.
Yeah,
And
St.
they've always
Catherine's
had
have
that.
one.
You're right. I'm an idiot.
Seven Stars does not.
St. Pete's and Steelton, it did not.
St. Joe's and Steelton back in like the early 80s had like 12 sections of those things.
Dang.
I remember. Yeah, there was a bunch. That's what I was just trying to make. Yeah, Catholic again.
Yeah. So in addition to that portrait of the George lassoing the moon, that little comedic sketch, she also has a record playing of Buffalo Gals, just in time for him to arrive. That's the song that they were harmonizing to walking down the sidewalk.
Was that song like in the 80s, like a takeoff of this one?
No, you're thinking Buffalo Stance.
Like, no, not that
Cherry?
one. Well, the one where they go,
We did the dive every time we dance.
No, before that, where the one where it's like, two buffalo go around the outside.
No.
You know which one I'm
That's an
talking about?
Eminem song.
No, but he took that from a song back in the day, in the 80s. Two buffalo go round the outside.
Maybe the theme.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering, like, because this...
Well, this is like Buffalo Gals, like the gals.
The gals.
That song came out in like the 1800s.
Right, and they're playing it here, but I'm saying the one in the 80s, like I said, this movie, I probably caught parts of it, so watching that and hearing that song, I'm like, I wonder if there's a tie to the 80s version, you know what I mean? Much like, what was the one we talked about in Young Frankenstein? Putting on the Ritz.
Putting on the Ritz,
Oh, yeah.
You know how that was like out, and then they did it in the 80s, and it was like, well, which one's... Yeah, Taco. So which one was, that obviously was influenced. If you would have asked me before we did Young Frankenstein, I'd been like, well, that's a, Taco song. So I was just curious if you knew about that.
I had heard no or read no connection between the
to
two.
that.
I'm sure we can dig into it.
Yeah, I'll look it up.
Yeah.
Mailbag that.
Mailbag.
Mm-hmm.
Well, again, George is still sour that his brothers, he's going to allow his brother to carry on with his life, and George is going to be left holding the bag. And that mood of his sours his and Mary's evening. They ended up fighting, and on his way out, their old friend, Sam Wainwright, calls in from New York. Now, Sam, of course, has since gone on to become a successful entrepreneur in the world of plastics. He even goes so far as to offer George a job on the ground floor, work his way in. Again, for the sake of the building and loan, for the sake of the town of Bedford Falls, George declines. But by now, neither George nor Mary are listening to a word Sam has to say. Mary has loved George all this time, and George realizes that he's in love with her.
Yeah, what was up with the, he was up on her, like smelling her a little bit, and it was like rough kind of.
They're sharing a phone. They're sharing a telephone.
Right, and then he was like kissing her rough. Do you think it was just all that years of aggression, like not aggression, but like passion?
I think they were trying to show passion, back. They can't go overboard on what they're trying to show. So like that long, like kind of hard kiss shows. Yeah,
he was like really putting it on her.
Passionate.
Like, it was very like you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I just was. That part to me was a little like, oh, what the hell's going on? Why is he being so rough with her? I guess.
That's why I got the PG-13 rating.
Yeah,
just PG. I think it was the pent up.
Like I've been waiting for this so long, and let me just, I got you.
Or maybe it's just the realization, like the whole, again, since they were kids, since she was, just a little kid, 8 years old, 9 years old, she loved this guy.
Well, he was in a pissy mood too, like you said.
There's that.
Yeah.
So instead of beating her, he's next with her and kisses her.
Right. You got to be gentle, though. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So there's such a speaking of gentle, there's such a genuine and gentle and heartfelt moment when those two are on the phone listening at the same time. Like there's a closeness and like you can really see it build between the two. Like when Mary's talking, George is there and he can smell her and he can, feel the softness of her skin or like her hue or her aura about it. And it starts to capture him. And the same for her when he's talking.
Was the other guy, so that was her man on the line. At the time, they were together or whatever.
He remained interested in her. Understand that the idea of courtship was far different than what we experienced.
So was the girl behind him, were they kind of insinuating he's got other women?
Sam out in New York?
Yeah. Yeah, okay.
He's living the life, man. He's got his staff and secretaries all, fondling him.
Right, okay.
All over him.
Yeah, he had the money.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. In America, first you get the money, then you get the power, then you get the women.
That's right.
True.
Then you get the carriage.
That's right.
I would still get a carriage today. Honest to God, if I win that lottery jackpot, I'd be like, who's that idiot in the carriage going down Derry Street? Like,
with a big top hat on?
Yeah, like
baller.
I think he won the lottery.
Absolutely baller.
Paid with coins.
Top hat, like one of them canes. Oh,
that'd be great.
Yeah, monocle.
So cool.
Ooh, you need a monocle, a cane with a white tip, and then a top hat.
Right.
And I want to get one of those big, like, where I write checks, but it's like the big booklet.
The big checkbook.
Yeah, we're like, whoosh.
You got to open it up.
Like that Happy Gilmore checks.
Yep.
Yes, yeah.
All right, let's fast forward a few months. These two lovebirds, it's their wedding day. Now flush with $2,000 in wedding cash.
Damn.
The two plan to travel and start their lives together. But their plans are swiftly cut short when they find there's a run on the banks in town, including Bailey Building and Loan. In the midst of the crisis, Mr. Potter now controls the town's main bank. The main bank has since called Bailey Building and Loan's line of credit, and Mr. Potter is offering Bailey Building and Loan customers 50 cents on the dollar for their shares of Bailey Building and Loan Thrift Institution. George convinces the shareholders to wait it out, thereby saving the building and loan, but in doing so, he exhausts all but $2 of the $2,000 he'd received in wedding proceeds.
Yeah, so he was offering these people, this is probably the Great Depression, right?
This is that. So we're in 1932, 1933. Great Depression started at the end of night in October, whatever the hell, October 29th, October something, 1929.
So is this in the midst of that?
This is, well,
I think they're coming out of it a little bit, aren't
talking
they?
like 3 to 4 years later.
So I was wondering if that was the reason for the run on the banks.
100%.
Okay. So yeah, that's...
So like the run on the banks, there was certainly 100% a run on the banks right after that October date, 1929. But the run on the banks continued as time went on. It wasn't like all banks got hit all at once. It was a gradual thing that would affect different parts of the United States at different times.
And there's a thing with banks too, like a lot of people don't realize at any time, like they can call your loan, right?
100%.
And you have to come up with the money like on the spot.
I don't know about all that.
Not from a borrower's not from a simple borrower like
so if
you
your
or me.
mortgage, they can't go, like Wells Fargo can't go, yeah, you're going to pay it all right
No,
now.
hell
Okay,
no.
okay.
That's why you sign. Like, there's contractual stuff like that.
Okay.
Now, they can call it to the extent that, look, man, we're going to call it, but you have 90 days, right?
Or you can refinance somewhere else
Sure.
or whatever, do something like
Absolutely.
that. I got you.
Yeah, but the immediacy doesn't happen. Now, the contrary to this is you see all these panicked, individuals, just Tom, Dick, and Harry's like you, me, Matt. I mean, these are just people that want to make sure they got the cash, because if they hear banks are failing, I want to get my money the hell out of there before it goes upside down.
And like, what's his name? The guy, I forget, the stock guy. What the hell's his name? He says when people get scared, get greedy.
Sure.
What's his name?
Not Warren Buffett.
Warren Buffett.
That's what Warren Buffett, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
Warren Buffett says when people get scared, get greedy. So that's kind of what Potter's doing.
Sure.
Like everybody's scared. I'm just going to get greedy.
Well, yeah, because they just made it through the Depression where they know the actual value of how much, like 5 cents is
Big time.
Yeah, like these people, like today, you see pennies on the street. People like just walk right by that.
So was he buying them out at 50 cents on the dollar on their investments? Is that what that was?
So the way Bailey
or bonds,
Bailey,
I got you.
The way Bailey works is they borrow from a bank. They lend to other customers. They live on the spread. Now, other customers, when they are buying or when they put money in deposit at Bailey Bank and Loan, Building and Loan, which of course takes that money and buys a piece of land, and there's a mortgage on it. Like it's from left pocket to right pocket to somebody else's pocket to this pocket to the other pocket. Mm-hmm. It's just financing 101.
I gotcha.
And when all of that happens, people now are going to in this case, like the Bailey Building and Loan, they're like, I want my money back. And George was very apt, and I thought it was a great description for the layperson when he explained, well, no, man, your money's not here. Your money's invested in this guy's house. And his money's invested in this guy's house, and it's invested in the other guy's house. Mm-hmm. It's just that trickle-down effect that if you start yanking all your money out, everything collapses because the money doesn't exist. It was exchanged to go to something else. Now, there is instead an item of value to replace that money. I should say purchase for that money, that being the house, the dirt, you name it. Mm-hmm. But to liquidate all that just to get all the money back is impossible.
Right.
Absolutely impossible. So, circling back to what we were talking about, you had old Mr. Potter, who is like, you know what? I'll tell you what, you guys are all scared and you guys are worrying about your money. You might have $1 worth of a share in that building and loan across the street. I'll give you 50 cents for every dollar you have invested. I mean, then of course he then gets control and could liquidate and do whatever, but he had the baller money to do it.
You're right.
Exactly what you were saying relative to Warren Buffett. When people get scared, that's when you buy.
You get greedy, yeah.
Yep. Quick, I don't want to say it. Quickly, did you guys grow up watching the Waltons? Did you guys grow up watching Little House on the Prairie?
I didn't watch it, but it was on in my house. Like I would catch parts of like Michael Landon and all that.
That's Little House.
Oh, okay. Then
that's a girl running through the field in the beginning.
Yep.
Yeah, you'd remember. You would remember it if you.
So there were two schools growing up. You were either a Waltons guy, or I should say a Waltons person, or a Little House on the Prairie person?
I guess I was Little House on the Prairie in my house then.
I was Walton's.
Okay.
Anyway, one of the people that come up, her name is Mrs. Davis. So as George is now giving out people, like, look, what's it going to take to just get you through the week? Not hundreds of dollars, because you only got $2,000 to go around here. So people are like, all right, well, give me $100, or I'm sorry, give me $20. Give me a little bit, whatever I can take that'll get me through the week. One of the ladies that pops up, her name is Mrs. Davis in the movie. That was actually Grandma Walton from the Walton.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah. Again,
fun fact.
That was a lot of explanation for an unnecessary detail.
I just remember, like, good night, Zap Bob.
Correct.
Good night, Dave.
That's correct.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
That would happen at the end of every episode. You see the lights going off in all the rooms in the little Walton house.
That's exactly right. Well done, Matt.
Thank you.
I like what you did there.
Yes.
Well, after this long day, George receives a call from Mary to come home. A home he didn't even know existed. Well, Mary has since purchased that old Grantville house, that dilapidated one in which they'd thrown the rocks at years earlier. Nearly broke, George arrives to find that Mary has done her best to make that house look like a European hotel, complete with travel posters. There's a fire going. There's a full meal. Makeshift bedroom in the other room. Hell, she's roasting chickens that's connected to the pulley system that's connected to the record player.
Yeah, rotisserie.
Hell, even Bert the cop and Ernie, that taxi driver, they join the charade, harmonizing to I Love You Truly outside for George and Mary to hear. This is now when Mary reveals to George the wish she'd made all those years ago. Her wish was for him to be married to her, living in that house, having a life together. Like, dude, this is a tender moment, man.
Wonderful.
Yeah. It's wonderful. It's a serious moment, dude. Like, this chick loves him, man.
Yeah, in that money pit.
And the money pit. The house with a big-ass leaky roof.
Yep.
Yeah, but it's theirs.
It is.
Yeah.
It's their house.
It
so
is.
They can always make something of it.
They just started, man.
Much like the story. You know, you can always make something out of, let's see.
You know, people like that buy, like have a house and they're just always working on it. It's
Yeah.
never done.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely. That was that was my uncle out in California.
Yeah.
He was forever working on that house. Now, granted, there was earthquakes that would kind of, demolish whatever the hell he had been working on. But, dude, he was forever working on that house.
Right.
Well, we're now in the not too distant future. Now, 1935. Again, this is all flashbacks, right? With Clarence the Angel. The Martini family is the newest addition to the neighborhood now known as Bailey Park. George and Mary even helped them move in. Did you guys take notice? Like, as they say, hey, kids, get in the back, and Martini's kids get in the back. There's a goat
back,
in the back of their car.
Yeah.
When they arrive at the Martini house, of course, they help them celebrate. They offer them bread, that the house may never know hunger, salt, that life may always have flavor, and wine, that joy and prosperity may reign forever. There's an impromptu visit from Sam Wainwright, who's gone on to become an extremely wealthy and successful man, and reminds George of the lack of material wealth that he's since accumulated. Later that day, George is called into Mr. Potter's office and is offered a job. Seems odd, but in fact, it's a cunning attempt to dissolve Bailey Building and Loan. Now, George is currently making $45 a week, and Potter offers him $20,000 a year. To put that in perspective, $45 a week in 1935 is around $54,000 a year today. $20,000 a year in 1935 is around $460,000 per year today.
Yeah, I would have did that.
Yeah, he's buying mad carriages.
Yeah,
on that.
yeah. I would have been on that.
Yeah.
I would have just, at that point, honestly, if it was me, I probably would have did it. But no, he only gave him a 3-year contract. Though,
It was a 3-year contract.
So he would have screwed him after the 3 years.
Sure. Now, fortunately, I guess, if you think about, we've talked about this in another podcast, right? This is all about choices and paths and how things spiderweb, how one choice will lead to another choice, leads to another choice. And it's everything what you choose. Obviously, life is a choose your own adventure, and it's up to you to decide. So I got to believe that should he have gone down that path, and should Mr. Potter, or I should say when Mr. Potter, gives him the heave ho, he would have probably just gone to work with Sam Wainwright. He would have figured something out.
Yeah.
Well, of course, George initially considers the offer, but he promptly rejects it after shaking Potter's wretched hand. George returns home, once again beaten down by life. Of course, it's uplifting for him to find out that Mary is pregnant with their first child. What are you thinking, Matt? What do you think?
No, just the whole thing. Like, he had he had life by the cojones again, and he was there. He had everything. It pretty much handed to him at that point. But what was the main, like, was it just that, like you said, the wretched hand?
They just couldn't eat his pride and take money from that guy.
I don't think it's that. I think it's knowing the consequences. Again, Jordan.
Oh, this guy's going to own the town.
He's going to own the town.
Yeah.
He is going to just rob and chisel everyone out of their money. Like that, we've already gotten past this part now where we mentioned Bailey Park, right? The Martinis move in there. So Bailey Park is actually built at whatever cost, and then Bailey Building and Loan isn't making much of a dime on that. They're instead passing those savings on to these people buying these houses. Like
Amazon.
No, not really.
George even mentioned that in an earlier part of the movie when he's given Potter the what for after his dad dies, and they're looking to dissolve the building and loan. Then he's like, "Look, man, you're a slumlord. Like, you just chisel these people out of this money."
Well, they made a comment about that, how that guy was showing Potter like this Bailey Park, and look how much rent you're losing.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's exactly right.
But he's making, as what you said, like $460,000 today. He could have done more with that money for the community if he would have took this job by Potter. I think he could have like, made some other little businesses. Potter couldn't control all that.
No.
And him being in cahoots with him at that point, working for him, I think I just think George made a bad decision in this. This is one of them things, especially with the young one coming. Mary's pregnant. He could have bought like a nice new crib.
I think not saying normal, but I think majority of people would probably jump on it.
Again, this is a movie,
but
and
of course.
it's for that point
movie,
that they're making that point of how good of a person.
This guy's just so good-hearted.
Yeah, he's just so kind-hearted.
He's forever thinking of anyone but himself first. Yep. Good old George.
Good old George.
Here's a good George. Well, the years go by, and George and Mary have since been blessed with a total of 4 kids, 2 boys, 2 girls.
Damn, not much to do out there
I guess.
in that house.
Well, they never left Bedford Falls, but they have slowly grown that building and loan into a pretty respectful outfit. Of course, at this point, World War II came and went. George was rejected in the draft due to that bum ear of his.
Excuses.
But he did his part in the war effort around the town nonetheless. They illustrate some clips of some old movie clips of what happened. Like, we see war now, and we know that, our military is extremely well-funded, like beyond well-funded, and can just throw shit away. Back in the day, man, I mean, for World War II, you had rations, you had people, recycling rubber.
They're more frugal.
I mean, donating everything to the war effort. You had existing for-profit commercial businesses completely changing up their production to make tanks, airplanes,
whatever, something to send over to the troops.
Yeah, man.
Yeah,
right.
I mean, it was a whole different world back then. George's little brother Harry has since become a war hero and was actually given the Congressional Medal of Honor. In fact, the whole town is anxiously awaiting his return to celebrate. In the process of making his week's deposit at the bank, old forgetful Uncle Billy unwittingly places the $8,000 cash deposit into Mr. Potter's newspaper while gloating to him over Harry's success. This guy's an idiot.
Oh, yeah.
This guy's an absolute tool. Like, I wanted to throw my damn shoe at the screen. Every time I see it, I just want to punch him.
Was he just like, was he just supposed to be like one of those kind-hearted, you know what I mean? The Uncle Billy character.
Just like
lovable
idiot.
Yeah, lovable idiot. Like, he's not trying to be like that.
Correct.
That dumb, but he just is.
He is.
And that's what makes him Uncle Billy.
100%. He is the lovable idiot.
Yes.
He's like the crackhead that you just can't be angry at.
Right.
Except they didn't have crack back then. They did have poison, though.
They did.
But he wasn't like an alcoholic or anything either. He wasn't like the town drunk, or I think he just was slow-minded.
I think he had what we could now call, adult ADD or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
This guy was just a scatterbrain. He couldn't keep track of anything.
But he was kind. He was having a good time, always talking to, doing his thing. But he just, you have to feel bad for him, but it wasn't his fault.
Yeah.
Well, despite frantic searches, the money is forever gone. Mr. Potter kept it.
What a dick.
Dude, what a dick is right, man.
Horrible.
Ass.
Yo, man, those coaches ain't going to ride themselves.
That's true, man.
Come on, man.
He got to pay for apples and carrots to feed the horse.
Yeah, that's upkeep.
He's got to pay for new leather whips. Whatever.
Yeah.
And obviously upset George returns home that night and lets his frustrations out on his family, nitpicking at everything and anything around the house. In fact, his youngest daughter, Zuzu, has since come down with a cold. And when her teacher, Mrs. Welsh, calls to follow up on her condition, Old George lays into the teacher, too. As her last resort, George pays a visit to Mr. Potter in hopes of securing a loan with a life insurance policy with a cash value of $500 and a contingent value of $15,000 in the event of his death. No dice.
Nope.
No, Mr. Potter's just a hard no. In fact, Mr. Potter not only gives a resounding no, he also calls the sheriff to issue a warrant for George's arrest on the grounds of embezzlement and misappropriation, which is actually fair to the extent that Mr. Potter is on the board of the savings and loan. He's on the board of the bank. I mean, somehow, some way, this guy can't find $8,000, and his chance would have it, the state bank examiner is in town looking over his stuff. So, I mean, Mr. Potter was within every right to do it, albeit the fact that he set the thing up in the first place.
The stars are aligning.
Yeah, well, the bad ones.
The bad ones, yeah.
Yeah, well, George is a mess, an absolute mess. He makes his way to Mr. Martini's bar for a drink. Beside himself, George prays while at the bar, asking to be shown the way. And just then, Mr. Welsh, who happens to be at the bar at the same time, learns of George's identity and punches him in the jaw for bawling out his wife over the phone earlier. We don't talk like that anymore. Like, you bawled her out, man, or I bawled out.
Yes, it's something different when you're bawling out.
Yeah,
Maybe.
Bawling out now. Is
Yeah.
it's sports related.
Yeah.
It is sports related, or it is a whole other perverted meaning.
Right.
Yeah,
That too,
yeah.
Indeed, though, it is in fact an idiom for scolding or reprimanding someone in a harsh or forceful manner. Anyway, with the harsh reality that he's tangibly worth more dead than alive, George makes his way to the bridge over the town's river, contemplating suicide. Just then, an old man appears and jumps into the river ahead of George. George being George, he of course jumps in to save him.
Much like his brother.
Just like his brother. George is going to put somebody else ahead of himself every time. Even
at his lowest point.
Even at his lowest. Well, while drying off and warming up, the old man reveals himself to be Clarence.
And Clarence's parents have a real good marriage.
There you go. Clarence's parents. Nice. He's also he's been assigned to be George's guardian angel. Now, during a heated conversation and still down on himself, George states that it would be better if he'd never been born. That's not a bad idea, says Clarence. It takes him up on that thought.
Yeah, because he's thinking of a way to show him.
Yeah.
Right. That makes sense.
Okay.
Yep.
If this would have happened.
Yeah, that's right. And indeed, a series of strange events ensues. A walk to where George had left his car earlier reveals that the car is gone, and there's no damage to the tree he'd hit while driving. The owner of the tree reveals the town's name to now be Potterville, no longer Bedford Falls. Everything Matt, this is what happens when George doesn't step in.
Right. Yeah. Biff.
That's right.
This reminds me of
That's exactly right. That's
Back
exactly
to the Future,
right.
You know.
Martini's bar is now called Nick's Bar. Mr. Gower, the pharmacist, had actually spent 20 years in prison for poisoning and killing a child years earlier and has since become the town drunk. George had earlier kept a few petals that had fallen from a flower held by his daughter Zuzu. Those petals they're gone. They're no longer in his pocket, nor is his wallet or any sort of identification. Clarence explains, this is the world now without George ever having been in it. Still, we go further. The main thoroughfare of what's now known as Potterville is just one big red light district, full of gambling, dancing, houses of ill repute.
Oh, so it's much like Amsterdam before Amsterdam.
Exactly.
I think that would have been the coolest place.
It's like Atlantic City. It's like a little Vegas.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if I was George, I'd be like, you don't need me.
Right.
Like, come on. You don't need me.
The home he'd made with Mary at 320 Sycamore Street has reverted back to that dilapidated wreck it had been when he was young.
And that's what that was. Lipstick on a pig was what Mary did to that.
She did, but at least she stopped the rain from coming in.
Right. It was
She patched it up.
livable. Yeah.
Livable for a family of 6.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not bad. What was the home in which he grew up is now Ma Bailey's boarding house. Old forgetful Uncle Billy has since been placed in an insane asylum. And worse, George's little brother, Harry, actually died at the age of 9 when he fell through that ice, and no one was there to save him. Once again, Clarence reminds George that every man's life touches so many others, and when it's not around, it leaves an awful hole. His last hope at finding some semblance of his life is Mary. But Mary's gone on to become an old maid and works at the town's library. George has lost it all, including his mind. After a scuffle with Bert the policeman, he makes his way back to the bridge.
Yeah, that would all be very stressful. You know,
You don't
what I'm saying?
say.
Could you imagine? Like your whole life is gone.
So we all obviously grew up with science fiction and we already mentioned Back to the Future and stuff like that and timelines and shit like that.
Mm-hmm.
I think this was pretty brilliant for
Well, I was going to ask,
as far back in the day as this was.
Well, I was going to ask. I don't watch old movies like that unless they're recommended like that. I watched Rear Window, which was 10 some years after this, but I don't sit and watch these movies unless there's, for the vintage cinema review. I enjoy it. So at that time, was there movies like this that would tie together? You know what I mean? That were like you said, I would think at this time this movie was groundbreaking. Yeah. But I don't know if anybody else was doing things like that as far as like writing a movie.
Not that I know of.
Well, almost like A Christmas Carol. Was that before this? Right? Yeah.
So, I mean, dude, so you're talking about Charles Dickens.
Yeah.
And I mean, that is
way before.
Yeah, way before for sure. And there's absolutely parallels between that and
that's what I'm
this.
saying. Like a lot of, like, they were taking this and going back to like, oh, let's see like what was, or like ghost of, instead of a ghost, kind of like a angel.
You wonder if they had like I had the first time I saw Usual Suspects. Like you're at the end, you're just like mind blown. Like if you didn't know about it, you're watching that movie, and at the end, you're like, "Oh my god!" You know what I mean?
And shit, that's Kaiser Sose,
right?
We're definitely going to do that movie, by the way.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, I dig that one.
What was the movie with Bruce Willis with the I See Dead People?
Oh, The Sixth Sense.
Sixth Sense. I remember that
Haley
was just
Joel
out when I was at FedEx. There was this dude Sharif that me and Dix worked with.
Yeah,
and like everybody was talking about it. Like, oh man, everybody's like, oh, you got to go see it. You got to go see it. Like, because if they just saw it. Mm-hmm. So one dude Sharif was like, yeah, man, I didn't know he was dead the whole time. And we're like, huh?
That wasn't.
He ruined it.
Yeah,
entire
and then the whole thing I'm going to watch, I was like, this sucks.
Yeah, because it was ruined.
And I was like, oh man, yeah.
Thanks a lot, Omar.
My daughter, we introduced this movie to them a couple years ago, and she didn't know anything about it. We were maybe a half hour. I forget how long in the movie. She's like, he's dead. I'm like, what? I'm like, how did you know that?
Yeah.
I don't know how she picked it up, but she knew. And I'm like, you're the first person that I know that most people I would talk.
Do you think she had a tipster? You think there was a tipster?
I don't know.
On
No,
it?
she knew nothing of it. We were like, oh, this is a good movie. You'll dig it.
I only saw it for the first time within the last 10 years.
Did you know about that part?
I had no idea.
Right. What I'm saying is nobody ruined it for you before you saw it. Yeah. So.
In fact, I watched it because somehow, some way, I had developed a terrible habit of leaving cabinet drawers open.
Okay, yeah.
I don't know why. It just happened. Like if I'm in a hurry and I'm making stuff and I'm reaching from one to the other for this utensil or that object or something else, it's like it's a staging area. And then I end up leaving the kitchen and then just leaving it in complete disarray. I've since, happily gotten rid of that habit. But my wife had, you're like the Sixth Sense, man. You're like the Sixth Sense. And I didn't understand what she was talking about.
Yeah.
So I watched it and I had no idea. It blew me away at the end.
Yeah, I think Matt's wife liked my joke the one time we were out at like a bar or something hanging out. There was like a whole group and I'm talking and nobody's like listening to me.
Right.
And like everybody's just doing their thing. And I'm like, is this like the Sixth Sense? Because if you didn't see the movie, you wouldn't get the joke.
Right.
But I remember her laughing. She liked that little joke. I'm glad she got the reference at least. But
nobody was listening, so nobody knew.
Yeah, like everybody's talking around me and I'm talking and nobody's listening. I'm like, am I in the Sixth Sense? Or like, you know what I mean? So, but anyway,
Story of my life.
Back to this movie. That was all very cool. I was like, when I got to that point in the movie and like really ramped up, I was like, all right, here we go. Like, I like those kind of movies where you get to see like an alternate universe.
Yeah.
Like what would happen if things were different? And it reminded me of Back to the Future.
Yeah.
Part 2, I guess.
Oh my God. Yeah, for sure. I mean, you've got like, this is Twilight Zone. This is like some really forward thinking stuff for back then. But I say that, or we say that, or whatever says that, years later, who knows? Maybe they were thinking of it back then. This happened to be one that did it.
Right.
Oh, wow. So George got in a scuffle with Bert, ran back to the bridge where this all started. So now desperate, George once again prays. He prays as hard as he can. Please, God, let me live again. Bert, the policeman, arrives not long after, but in this case, not to arrest him. Instead, he has to take him home after he'd gone missing. He's back. George's life is right back where he left it on the bridge earlier. Running home and happier than he's ever been, he arrives at his house, gleefully waiting to be arrested and smeared by the local newspaper. Overjoyed to see his family, he soon learns that Mary and Uncle Billy have rallied the townsfolk on his behalf. Having devoted his life to the benefit of others, seemingly everyone in town returns the favor. They've all chipped in to bail out the Bailey Building and Loan catastrophe. Harry arrives home and toasts to his brother, the richest man in town, but not for his wealth, instead for his character and impact on everyone's lives. Amongst the pile of donations, George and his family find a copy of Tom Sawyer, placed there by Clarence with a note inside reading, "Remember, no man is a failure who has friends. Thanks for the wings." An innocent Zuzu hears a bell ornament ringing on the tree and tells her father that every time a bell rings, an angel gets its wings, a sentiment he'd heard not less than a half hour earlier from Clarence. Our film ends with the throng of townsfolk singing Auld Lang Syne, reminding us to remember long-standing friendships.
Yeah, that scene at the end is very heartwarming. Everybody's coming in, dumping money on it. That's what I expected at the reunion. Like everybody come up, dump money on the table for the podcast.
I didn't get a dime.
Like we want to invest. You know what I mean? Yeah. But no, you could just feel the love. In
oh my
the room.
God, yeah.
It was just a great scene.
Like there's
well, see, if people don't know this movie, they know that part. I think.
Oh, that's the part I always.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's what I know this movie from is because you see every commercial that says, miracle, wonderful life, and then you hear that and see that part.
Yeah, for sure.
No, this is definitely like my dad. My memories of like he would watch these black and white movies, these old school movies. Yeah. Obviously, he loves them, and this was one that would always be on. All these old, but this is like a part. This part, and then a part of him running through the town is one that I always kind of remember seeing.
Yeah.
So the early stuff, like the earlier parts, like I don't really before I sat down and watched it, which is the second time in the past 5 years, I'd say. But yeah, definitely a great ending
for sure.
It brought tear to like I told Matt, like he told me he's gonna watch it last night. I said, yeah, I kind of cried at the end. Like,
dude, I cried
tears.
Dude, I get teary a few times in this movie.
It's a deep movie.
Well, just that the whole part, like I could relate. Sometimes I come home from work and I'm annoyed. I had a bad day. Yeah. Like back to that part where he comes home and he's just like taking it, and he won't say what's wrong. Yeah. He's just being a jerk. And I think we've all done that. Like we're having rough times 100%. And we take it out on people that are around us that we know, like you can do that because they love you. It's unconditional.
Yeah.
And you can get away with it. You know what I mean?
Start playing like music in the background. Start that little part there.
Oh, for here.
Like, that little, some like nice, like music in the background.
Right. That. But you know where I'm coming from, right? Yeah. I mean, we've all done it.
Of course. I mean, I don't know, but this movie has so many just redeeming elements in it. It's so heartwarming on so many different levels. Like to see the amount of, again, selfless generosity that George puts out, but then, I mean, the unconditional, undying love that he gets from his wife. I mean, that's just miraculous to me.
Yeah, even being like that, like, they're even like how he was acting.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? She's like worried about him. Let me go find. You know what I mean?
Sure.
You got to wonder like what our wives would do if we came home acting like that.
I get a kick in the nuts.
Yeah, right.
I think George was on one of Mr. Gower's poison pills for that whole segment there.
Hopped up on goofballs.
Fun facts. Ooh, about that time.
It is about that time.
Who wants to lead it off?
Oh, I'll start one.
Okay, go ahead.
So we had mentioned this movie didn't initially do well in theaters. It actually, on paper, it recorded a loss of $525,000 at the box office. It wasn't until, the film's elevation to the status of what's now that beloved classic, that didn't come until 3 decades after its release. It became a television staple during the Christmas season of 1976 because the copyright on the film expired in 1974.
Yeah, I heard that, but then it got reinstated, right? Later on, like they had remastered it or did something.
I hope somebody's making money off of this.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that I read that. It might be here in the fun facts that I have, but yeah, that's pretty wild.
Somebody's making money.
Oh, absolutely.
Let's hope.
So James Stewart was in the war. A lot of people don't know that, like leading up to before this film.
Yeah, Stewart was in the war. 100%.
He was a war hero and stuff, and he was actually like in a very dark place when he returned from the war, like in a depressive state during the filming of this movie.
He couldn't find a job.
What do you mean?
He couldn't get work
when he got back.
Yeah, I think this might have been the first work he had after he got back.
I didn't know about that, but yeah, he was in a dark place. A lot of people don't know that during this movie, but the phone kiss scene, he was very nervous about it during that when he got back. So Stewart filmed the scene in one unrehearsed take, and it worked so well that that part of that. But he was very nervous about it. I think because of the state of mind he was in returning from the war. The part where she's on the phone and they embrace and kiss. The part we were talking about. That part.
They were worried for her sake.
No, he was nervous about that scene because of that mind space he was in because of the depression and all that. But they did it in one take basically.
Nice.
So he was really worried about it, I guess, leading up to that.
His acting in this was so good. There's a scene, the scene when he's given, it's 3 months after his dad died. He's still wearing the black armband, and he's given, Mr. Potter the what for, like, again, you slumlord, you loan shark, you're a piece of shit. You can hear the cracking in his voice, right? Like, you can hear the passion that's in his voice. Like, he really took on that part of just really giving this piece of shit shyster just
Right.
the business. And don't you talk about my dad like that, and don't you talk about the good work he's done for this town. Like, again, this is for Jimmy Stewart, like, just a great job.
It was a good performance. Yeah.
Fun fact, Beverly Hills High School was where the swim part was filmed.
Yeah.
And actually, in 1946, if you think about a place that would have a pool like that would open up,
Yeah.
it'd be Beverly Hills High School with the money
absolutely.
they had there.
They'd have that baller, yeah.
Fun fact.
Floors go like this.
Fun fact. Boy, floors go like this.
Nice.
That school's still open.
Yes.
Yes.
And that's still in use today. The same swim club there.
Yeah.
Well, it says here there was a movie, and I don't know this movie, Whatever It Takes from 2000. They filmed a similar school dance scene there. That was 54 years later. So, yeah.
And also with that, this was filmed, it's supposed to be a Christmas movie, winter,
Right.
but it was filmed in California, and they said it was like so hot there sometimes that they had to take days off
Oh, for the
because of the heat. And they said the special effects team invented the new type of snow for the film using water, soap flakes, and foamite.
Yes.
And that's a little bit of sugar, and that's what they still use today
Huh.
to make like the winter scenes.
You know what they used before that?
What?
Like painted cornflakes. And they said when they would like be filming and doing the taking the audio side of things, it would be loud. The sound was so loud from the thing Matt's talking about was more softer landing. It sounded like
snow.
Sounded like real snow basically.
And they use that today. Even though I hate the movies that are filmed with the fake snow because the people are doing stuff and the snow just sits on them.
Dude,
Right.
Is there any
Piles
way
up.
they can figure out some way to like
Make it melt.
Yeah, I just hate that.
When Clarence jumps in the river and George jumps in after him, they're in water, but snow is still sticking to them, like as they're coming out of the water and in the water.
Yeah.
Like, come on,
Yeah.
man.
Right.
There's got to be a way.
But see, you actually like there's some movies that are filmed where you see them on location, like in the winter, where they're like battling or like somebody's like chasing somebody through the water, and like they're just breathing, and you see like that coat. Like I dig that. I mean, this isn't like an action movie or anything like that, but like they could have did a little more on that, but it's still nice, heartwarming movie.
I'm going to
Absolutely.
give him the benefit of the doubt that it was the 40s. So,
Yeah.
fun fact: Cary Grant was intended to play George Bailey.
Oh, how about that?
Also, fun fact: Henry Fonda was also considered, but he was instead cast by the studio in My Darling Clementine, which was being filmed at the same time.
So this set that they developed for this movie was, I think at the time, nothing like it. And I don't even know if since then there's ever been an undertaking like this. So it took 2 months to do, which is crazy when you look at the size of it. It was 300 yards long, which is 3 whole city blocks.
So yeah, you're talking about the town, Bedford Falls.
They built that for this movie,
That's
which is just
amazing.
insane.
Damn.
So it included 75 stores and buildings,
Damn.
and then they had the main street. They had a factory district and the large residential and slum area. So all that basically built on this ranch. It was the Encino Ranch. RKO owned it.
I
Not
thought they were going
bad.
to say Lucas Ranch.
So it was like about 4 acres, they said. That's pretty large.
Heck yeah,
Yeah.
that's amazing.
Stewart actually did begin sobbing in that scene at the bar. You remember
really?
with the prayer? Yes.
That's pretty
Those
cool.
those were real tears.
That's awesome.
Actually, the tears were bottled. Now they're held in a museum in
Museum, right?
California.
Nice.
I believe it.
Let's see. Oh, among a number of others, Vincent Price was considered for the role of Mr. Potter.
That would have been good. He would have been younger though, right?
Shit, yeah.
No, really?
Well, I mean,
He would have been about. He's still probably been about like 50 or 40, right?
I'd put him in his 40s at this time. Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder how old
yeah.
Barrymore was at this time.
I don't know,
Probably
but
60s maybe.
probably. But Lionel Barrymore, which of course is part of the very famous Barrymore family, including Drew Barrymore.
Was that her uncle then? I guess.
I mean, I would
Or
imagine
grandfather.
Yeah.
great uncle, great grandfather.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I don't know the lineage of them, the Barrymores, but they were huge acting family in Hollywood.
Oh,
Not to
yeah.
be confused with Hugh Jackman,
No,
Hugh Jackman.
but instead huge
as
acting.
Wolverine.
Huge acting. Let's see. Lionel Barrymore got that role thanks mostly in part to, in fact, his voice work as Ebenezer Scrooge that he'd done on the radio.
That's pretty wild.
Yeah, Matt mentioned the Ebenezer or the Christmas Carol earlier. it is a very interesting tie-in.
That is cool.
Yeah.
So in this,
go
sorry,
ahead.
No, go ahead.
No,
Matt.
I just have one final one for the fun fact from over here. It was nominated for 5 Academy Awards, but it won none.
That's insane.
That's a damn shame.
What would have What would have
Yeah.
been better than this that year?
I don't know. Just the acting here, I would like to know what was acted out.
What would have been better,
better
at that
at the
time?
time.
That's in this movie, George, he wants to go on to build things in real life,
Yep.
but Jimmy Stewart actually majored in architecture at Princeton.
No shit.
Yeah,
At Princeton.
yeah.
Ooh.
So he was a smart guy,
Dang.
and like I talked about his military stuff. I think he retired as a brigadier general or something like that, something along those lines, from the military. But he definitely had he served in World War II.
Yep.
And then also I think in Vietnam.
What?
As well, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, Jimmy Stewart.
No.
Vietnam, maybe Korea.
Korea, man. There's no way from World War II to Vietnam.
I don't know.
He would have been in his 60s.
That's interesting.
He was like I think he was in the Air Force. You can look it up. Yeah,
That's what I'm looking up.
Yeah, I'm curious.
You know, the first script of this movie had George at the end. So when you see everybody singing All Lang Syne and stuff like that,
Right.
the first script had actually George fall to his knees and recite the Lord's Prayer, Our Father.
How about that?
They cut it out even back then because it would have seemed too churchy,
Okay,
there you go.
which I can dig.
Yeah.
What Dave was saying, he did serve in World War II. It was Commanding Officer 73 Bomb Squadron. Sorry about that. But it says here he got distinguished 2 flying crosses in World War II. And it says Vietnam War. And it says Stewart also served in the Vietnam War, but it says nothing but that.
Well, what he
Interesting.
did, yeah. But I know he was like in the military.
Did he like
and
fly over there to do like
he served
with Bob Hope or something?
I think he served with Stilton George over there.
Maybe.
Bob Hope. Matt, you might be right.
He might have been serving like hot dogs.
No,
to
it might have been like USO.
Yeah, I'm thinking like a USO type thing where they may have given him a.
No,
I gotta look it
I'm
up.
pretty sure it was like he did something flying wise.
Interesting.
Really?
I don't quote me on that, which too late as I
That's
already
fair.
saying it, but no. So Zap, like I talked about earlier with the banking and all that, the fun facts on that.
Yeah.
So this was 1947. There was an FBI analyst. He was running a memo on communist infiltration of the motion picture industry. So they were this was an obvious attempt to discredit bankers, is what they were saying. And it was a common trick that communists use. And they were saying basically like they were trying to like put this in the movie so that people would think, oh, banks are bad and all that.
Yeah.
And there was a whole thing. Like, it's crazy to think that there was conspiracy theories like that back then.
Dude.
That people were,
You had bad villains. You used to have bad guys. You used to have Dracula and whatever, like just nasty bad monsters that were the whatever.
right.
That was replaced with bankers.
Yeah.
Name me a movie where a banker's made out to look like a good guy.
Like a good guy. Yeah, it makes sense.
Right.
But I thought that was pretty wild.
Let's see. Have either of you guys seen that movie? This starred Andrew Dice Clay. It's called Adventures of Fort
Fairlane?
Fairlane.
Yes.
I love that movie.
Do you guys remember the name of the one girl in that? The girl that went missing?
I wouldn't remember.
Her name was Zuzu Petals.
Oh, from this.
Yeah.
That's got to be an ode to this.
It has to be. She had the flower petals that George had in his pockets. Zuzu Petals.
Do you know they released a colorized version of this film?
I did not know that.
Yeah, in 1986.
That would be lame.
Yeah, there was a lot of controversy around
Yeah.
it. There was a deal between Frank Capra and Colorization Incorporated. That was the producer of this version. Capra invested in half of the coloration work in exchange for creative control and part ownership. However, though, they realized that since the film was supposedly in the public domain, they could do all the work and let him go. So they were basically went and did it on their own and like trying to cut him out.
Right.
So he wasn't really getting, I guess, any money from it or anything like that. And then that outcry from all that, from this going on, led to the creation of the Library of Congress's National Film Registry in 1989.
There you go.
So that's kind of why.
Cash me outside. How about that?
So the version was pulled from distribution in 93, and that's when the film's copyright was restored. So I guess it is in copyright.
Yeah.
Because how long does that last? Not 100 years. Is it 70 years? I forget what it is.
No idea.
Because, that brought me back to one other thing I want
I'm
to
going
bring
to say
up.
at least 30. I'm going to say 30 because this expired. The copyright expired in 74.
74, so maybe it was 30 years. But there's a whole thing going on with like Disney stuff that's going out of, there's Steamboat Willie, that original.
The Disney original with Mickey Mouse.
Right. So there's a copyright on that expired.
Yep.
So now these film creators are going and making these horror movies using that Steamboat Willie because it's out of copyright.
Sure.
And they also did it with Winnie the Pooh.
No.
Oh, they have a horror movie on
Yes.
Winnie the Pooh. Yes.
So the reason they're able to get away with that is because of that.
Huh.
I hope they do a brand new Itchy and Scratchy.
Yeah, the copyright went out. So maybe we can use that stuff for the podcast.
Hey, why not?
Yeah.
Some Steamboat Willie. I got one more, and this one's kind of like a little twist, a tangent, as it were. So when you're watching the movie and the guy that's pissed at George for stealing Mary away from the dance, there's that one guy. His name is last name is Othello, Freddie Othello.
Yeah.
And he's pissed because George takes Mary away. He was about to dance with her. So Freddie gets together with this other guy who says, "Hey, look, man, Freddie, I see you're kind of pissed at George over there. Well, did you know that this floor opens up and underneath is a pool? And guess what? I've got the key."
Yeah, I remember that part. Yeah.
So Freddie's the guy that turns the key and does whatever. I'd seen this long ago when it's a face you just know from a kid or as a child. So when you guys were coming up, did you guys ever watch The Little Rascals, Our Gang?
Mhm. Yeah.
That guy was Alfalfa.
Oh, for real?
Oh.
So yeah, that guy is Alfalfa. He played. So the actor's name is Carl Switzer.
And that would have been like 15 years earlier or whatever.
10-ish.
10-ish, 15 years.
Yeah, sure. About that, close enough. But yeah, he just was Alfalfa.
That's wild.
That was his first role. So that the guy's name is Carl Switzer. He was born in 1927.
How about that?
Cash Me Outside. So besides acting, Switzer bred and trained hunting dogs and guided hunting expeditions. Now, among his notable clients were Roy Rogers, Henry Fonda, and, of all people, Jimmy Stewart. Now, here's where it gets twisty. In 1959, he was engaged to train a hunting dog for a guy named Moses Bud Stilts. All right? So Stilts. Now, the actor's name is Switzer. The guy with the dog is named Stilts. During training, the dog ran off after a bear. Stilts wanted the guy that owned the dog. He's like, "Look, man, I either want my dog back or I want the cash equivalent for the dog." So Switzer, Alfalfa, offered he put out a $50 reward for anyone that could find a dog. Now the dog was found, but now Switzer was out $50.
Right.
So wanting reimbursement for the $50, Switzer goes to Stilts' house, to confront him about it. It's like, "Dude, I found your dog. And
I want the $50.
Yeah, I had to fork out 50, but maybe you could reimburse me for it." So a fight ensued, and Switzer actually Alfalfa hit this Stilts dude over the head with a clock. One way or another, Alfalfa was then shot in the groin by a .38 revolver and died upon arrival at the hospital.
That's how he died.
Yeah, Stilts said it was in self-defense, but Stilts' stepson, who was home at the time, said Stilts shot him after the scuffle, after he was leaving. Like, Alfalfa was just walking away, and then Stilts shot him.
How we're referring to him as Alfalfa.
Yeah.
I mean, because it's Stilts and Switzer. I just want to make sure we're clear. So despite the physical evidence leading to Stilts' story being false, he wasn't charged, and the shooting was judged to be self-defense. Alfalfa was only 31 years old when he died.
That's crazy. We should do a true crime on that.
Yeah, man. That's
We could
crazy,
break that one down.
man. It's crazy.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So I guess it's the time where we'll do our little review on Earth review, our what do you call it? Late fee return or burn.
Sure.
So Zab, I guess it's your movie that you picked. So why don't you go ahead and start us off?
Well, we want to do a Christmas classic or something kind of classic. So I'll be very thankful to you, Dave, for offering to let me pick this one.
Right.
For me, I mean, if it's not already evident, I would late fee the shit out of this movie.
Buy it probably.
I would buy it.
Buy it. Oh, there you go.
This movie holds such a special place in my heart, and as chance would have it, very early in the movie when we see George, I guess I don't know. Are you? I think I told you guys, like, I have a bad ear. Like maybe 6,
Did
7
you fall
years.
in the pond?
No, but
No.
I know that 6, 7 years ago, this hissing started in my ear. It's not a ringing, it's a hissing.
Like a tinnitus or whatever.
So tinnitus is a ringing.
It's like a Harry Potter thing. Can you talk to snakes?
Maybe. But
That'd be
either way,
awesome.
that would be awesome. But either way, that hissing, of course, now affects my hearing. So as I'm laying there watching the movie one night, my wife comes over and she whispers. Well, anyway, there's a scene in the very beginning of the movie when George is a kid and he's working at the soda shop at the pharmacist office or pharmacist place, and when he's down there behind the counter, Mary, at 8, 9 years old at the time, leans over and says, George, is this your bad ear? George Bailey, I'll love you till the day I die.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting there watching this movie, and this is years ago. My wife, said the same thing. She just leans over and says that into my ear. And so she was, joking at the time.
Did she say John Zapp or George Bailey?
She said George Bailey.
George Bailey.
She said George Bailey.
Oh, okay.
But of course, just to, mimic the
movie. Right. That's cool.
So it's since then, though, while it was funny at the time, it's actually since then become, just a really like a tender moment for us, like a lovely thing. So like when we watch that in the movie, like, both of us will get a little teary.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's anyway. It's just a little special thing, something that I hold very dear.
That's awesome.
Just like this movie, this is such a fantastic movie, a great story of selflessness, putting the needs of others above your own, and really, you reap what you sow.
Right.
So there's my whole diatribe of late fee.
Late fee for sure. So Matt, what you got?
Real quick before I say that, he was a non-duty officer on a light bombing mission in Vietnam.
So he was good. So
and late fee, return or burn. I would try to actually watch this whole movie.
Nice.
Is there like a rental? I would rent and try to watch the movie.
We appreciate that.
It's good. It's good with the fire going for a nice winter afternoon. But yeah,
he does. So
I like James Stewart. He's all right.
You were not burning?
I would rent this.
You would rent. You're not burning it. You're not late feeing it.
Yeah.
I got you. Just straight up renting it. Yeah, for me, like to put it in perspective, I saw this movie as an adult. So as an adult, like I can appreciate it. Obviously, I'm not going to see it back when it first came out. I would say though, like we always talk about as a kid, I'm not really paying attention to a movie like this, being honest. Right. But I saw this as a young kid.
Yeah.
Being older and obviously, understanding a little bit more. I definitely like this. I wouldn't say that I would late fee it. I'm definitely going to watch it a couple times. I mean, obviously, this is a movie that's on all the time. I can catch it whenever. But I enjoyed it. I mean, I can definitely dig, especially for the time that it came out. Like this movie was, I got to imagine there's not much like that on this level back then. But maybe I'm wrong on that. I'm not an aficionado of old school movies like this. So,
well, definitely, this time of year it's going to be on. So if you just check your listing on the TV there, it's going to be on somewhere.
It'd be like Christmas Vacation or Christmas Story. Any of those, they're going to play it all the time. Obviously, Zap texted us like, "Hey, it's on whatever was it on E? I guess."
Yeah, and it's amazing the channels that run this thing.
Yeah,
like E is like such a gutter shitty channel, like just an awful channel. Why would they run such a great wholesome movie?
Right.
The what's the one that starts with the W? Is that what's called the W?
The W, yeah.
The W's running it.
They might be running it, but definitely a good movie. In between, I would say a late fee and a return, but be a late return. So I appreciate you picking this one.
Nice.
I was glad to sit down and watch it again.
Yeah.
But that's going to be it for the Vintage Cinema for 2024.
Yeah.
This should be coming out 2 days before Christmas. So Merry Christmas to everybody. And you guys got anything else in closing?
I got nothing else. Just Merry Christmas to everybody, and be thankful for what you got.
Yeah, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, Happy New Year.
Yeah.
Enjoy, and we'll be back.
Yeah, we'll be back 2025. So don't forget to find us on Facebook and Instagram at Old Dirty Basement and TikTok at Old Dirty Basement Podcast. I guess that's it for now. So we'll catch you where?
On the flip side.
If we don't see you sooner, we'll see you later.
Peace. Thanks for listening to The Vintage Cinema Review in the Old Dirty Basement. If you dig our theme music like we do, check out the Tsunami Experiment. Find them on Facebook. Their music is streaming on Spotify and Apple, and where great music is available.
You can find us at Old Dirty Basement on Facebook and Instagram, and at Old Dirty Basement Podcast on TikTok.
Peace.
We Audi 5000.